Hello Bio 2, we're continuing on with our introduction to the animal kingdom. And again, we're going to talk about, if you remember from the ending of our last video, so we're going to look at some important trends in animal evolution. So that's what we're going to look at today to help us understand what in fact animals are and how we classify them. And we need to know kind of why they evolved the way they do to help us better understand them overall. So our first thing being our trends in our animal evolution. When we think of complex animals, they tend to have certain things. One being that they have high levels of cell specialization and internal body organization, meaning that their cells all have specific jobs and that their body isn't just kind of a random assortment of things. They all kind of have a specific area where it's kind of beneficial to help the animal survive. They have what is known as bilateral body symmetry, which we will get to later on. They have a front end or head with sense organs, and which we will also mention that as well, and they have a body cavity. So these are things that are kind of associated, they go kind of hand in hand with having a complex animal. Again, we have to learn about what makes up an animal before we can actually talk about the specific types. And so the first one we're going to look at is that cell specialization. So as animals have evolved, their cells have become specialized to carry out different functions. And in multicellular organisms, each cell type has a structure and chemical composition that enable it to perform a specialized function. So the example we can give, just kind of relating us all back to humans, is that if we have different cells in our brain, that we have in our lungs, that we have in our heart, that we have in our feet. And that's just each one of those cells is in that specific area because it does a specific job that helps us survive overall. If we had lung cells up in our brain, we probably wouldn't be doing too well right now. So in multicellular organisms, humans being one of those, each cell type has a structure and chemical composition that enable it to perform a specialized function. And just a quick review of kind of how the makeup of kind of those specialized cells go is group of cells form tissues, and then groups of tissues join together to form organs, and then groups of organs all come together to form organ systems, all of which will work together to carry out a variety of complex functions. So hopefully that should be a review. We should all know that as far as how we are made up, how our cells specialize, and how they're organized. So the next one we're going to look at is early development of animals. And this is important because we can actually see how closely related we are to things by looking at how we develop overall. So things like what we look like as just basically time goes on, as will tell us that we are more closely related or more farther related from different animals. So early development, so animals that reproduce sexually begin life as a zygote or fertilized egg. So we've heard that term before. So all animals kind of start off the same way as a zygote or a fertilized egg. And this zygote will undergo a series of divisions to form what is known as a blastula or a hollow ball of cells. So all animals at some point in their life look like this right here. They just look like a hollow ball of cells that is formed after the sperm and the egg have come together. They form what is known as a blastula. And the blastula will then fold in on itself, forming a single opening called a blastopore. And this blastopore will lead into what is known as a central tube that runs the length of the developing embryo. And this tube becomes a digestive tract, and it's formed in one of two ways. So we all start off like this. Sponges through humans all start out like this, and then from there they can either go into one or two ways. So the first way is they can be what is known as a protostome. So a protostome is an animal whose mouth is formed from the blastopore. So if we look, we have the blastopore up here is this yellow opening right here, and then as things specialize, things start to grow, things start to divide, and this blastopore will eventually become the mouth. And most invertebrate animals are formed this way. So this is kind of a way for us to look and say, oh look, these invertebrates are more closely related because they kind of form the same way early on in their development. So that's showing that they're more closely related. So that's the first way, is protostome. The next one is a deuterostome, and this is an animal whose anus is formed from the blastopore instead of the mouth. So the mouth eventually will form, but the first thing that is formed is the anus. And the anus is obviously, we've heard this term before, is the opening through which wastes leave the digestive tract. And this one is kind of interesting because one group that we're going to talk about later is echinoderms, and those invertebrates are both considered to be the deuterostomes. So obviously we are vertebrates, we have a backbone, and so if we look here kind of over the course of time, this group of invertebrates might actually be the most closely related to the groups of vertebrates. So that's what this says. This similarity in their embryos, or embryology, may indicate that vertebrates have a closer evolutionary relationship to echinoderms than to other invertebrates. So since we share this early development, this, instead of being a protostome, we are a deuterostome, we know that we might be more closely related to the echinoderms than any other invertebrate group. So that is it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions.